the second consecutive day where another lessor has now again dragged Spicejet to court.
Yeah, and NCLT has questioned if this plea can even be taken, because each lessor is allowed to file just one plea. In April, Aircastle had already filed their first plea against Spicejet, and that hearing is scheduled for the 17th of July. So that is where it stands right now. So they will have to basically come back with how can they file a second one.
Right. It does seem like it's an attempt being made to build pressure on Spicejet.
Obviously, it's
right?
it's as straight. I mean, there can be no other reason behind such a move.
Okay.
These people knew that they are not allowed to file the second one before the first one the hearings have been completed. So if they've still done it, either it's basically to make some noise or create some pressure, because this plea will be turned down as I can see it.
Okay.
The second one.
The plea could be turned down or could be entertained, but it's not going to be good news for Spicejet, because remember yesterday when we talked about it, and Karthik, you mentioned there have been 3 such pleas already now, so this is not the first time. However, as and when we see Spicejet in news again and again, it is going to lose business.
No doubt about that, Shweta. And I think you're right, absolutely. This is pressure mounting on Spicejet day after day consecutively. 3 pleas against Spicejet, compelling literally NCLT to take Spicejet through the insolvency route, and that is not going to be easy for the Indian aviation story per se, not just Spicejet as an airline which is bound to get hit, and obviously so, but overall for the Indian aviation story, this is a continuance of bad news. We've seen what is going on with Go First. It's been a month and a half, almost 6 weeks today, that Go First has not been able to take to the skies. Go First, of course, had filed for voluntary insolvency, and that was against the backdrop of the faulty Pratt & Whitney engines that grounded 50% of its fleet, and that sort of accentuated the financial stress that the airline was under. In the case of Spicejet, the lessors seem to be taking a cue from what went down with Go First, where the lessors were unable to take their aircraft back, and in this case they want to preempt the situation by rather than waiting for Spicejet, rather than Spicejet going the insolvency route, the lessors are trying to push Spicejet into the insolvency route, so that the difference there being so that they can get their aircraft back, or they can be assured of the rentals on their aircraft and their engines, if Spicejet does go through the insolvency bankruptcy route.
And that is highly unlikely, given Go First is already under. We know it's not been able to take back to skies. It will not be good news if Spicejet is pushed into insolvency. So the likelihood of being entertained is relatively low.
It's tough to say. The first time the plea got rejected by Wilmington, it was understandable that NCLT has taken the decision in favor of the Indian airline Spicejet, and the second time when it was Aircastle, you felt, there is another lessor also in the fray, and Aircastle now with a second plea against Spicejet, it obviously makes the whole matter that much more serious for NCLT to also take cognizance of what is really going on, and maybe take some corrective action or take some preemptive action immediately, either in favor of the airline or in favor of the lessors. Which way it will turn, I think, depends solely on the merit of the case, the strength of the argument that gets made to NCLT.
Okay. But essentially, Amit, what we can understand from what's happening with each lessor coming out and dragging Spicejet to court and pleading them to go into insolvency, the financials, the books of Spicejet perhaps are not looking very good. We don't know what the losses are. Perhaps you can enumerate on that. But essentially, lessors are saying we're not getting what was committed to us, the money that was supposed to come our way. So Spicejet there, financially not doing too well.
They are not, and I'm not sure whether the lessors exactly know what are in the books of Spicejet, but the point of NCLT is that the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 basically wanted to reduce the number of pleas. Now, if Aircastle and Wilmington and Ellis have already filed one plea, and which is up for hearing next month, most of them, the rationale behind a second plea is basically just pressure mounting. I don't see anything more than that. Even though there is the lawyers of Aircastle are arguing that it is only a matter of rationale, and it's not a strict code that the insolvency and bankruptcy code states that you can't file a second one. So it's basically pressure mounting. And obviously, if I do not know whether before the hearing, it is the people at Spicejet need to pay up the amount. So it is basically pressure mounting again.
Okay, fair enough. So it is pressure mounting on Spicejet, and we don't know what books of Spicejet are looking at this point in time, Karthik, do we?
I haven't really taken a look at the numbers, but from what I've read in the papers, there is stress across almost all airlines in India, except for, of course, Indigo, which has kept a tight control on its numbers, on its operations, on its flight schedules, and overall on its expansion plan. So apart from Indigo, all other airlines, including Air India, which has been taken over by Tata Group. It's going to take a long time for the investment that Tata Group made to acquire Air India, for that to be amortized over time. The pressure on the books is going to continue to mount. And for other low-cost airlines...
But Tatas have very deep pockets. So
of course. But the books don't always see the depth of your pocket. They see the business case and just look at the numbers very objectively for that particular business unit. So yeah, you're right. They'll be able to infuse capital. They'll be able to take losses on their chin very squarely and perhaps with a smile. But for the other low-cost airlines, including Go First, Spicejet, even Akasa for that matter, I think it's a fairly uphill, or rather steep climb up to reach a cruising altitude where they are comfortable in their business operations.
Okay, so pressure they're mounting on Spicejet at this point in time. What we can confirm is that lessors are now repeatedly dragging Spicejet to court, hoping that the airline would be admitted into insolvency. That hasn't happened just as yet, so they've kept off the pressure. NCLT so far has ruled in favor of Spicejet. We will have to keep an eye on what happens further in case of Spicejet. If it does go under and if it moves into insolvency, that could take a beating on the operations of airline. But not so very good news coming in there for Spicejet at the moment.